Welcome to the Living Proof Recovery Podcast. We're your hosts, Evan and Brian. Tonight we have our crackhead friend, Joe, on with us. So we're going to go ahead and just get right into this thing, and we'll turn it over to Joe, kind of let you tell a little bit about yourself and wherever you want to go with it. We'll just this thing roll.
First and foremost, I didn't smoke that much crack. Okay, I'm
Define that much.
That much would be like, I don't know, maybe on a regular basis. You know what I mean? It wasn't my go-to. Maybe after some Xanaxes or something. But I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's October 4th, 2012. And for that, I'm truly grateful. That wasn't my first go at this, but it was my last. And I wish I could say I did everything perfectly and I had this great program and this great experience, but a lot of that was just because of God. A lot of that was God showing up when I didn't. And there was a lot of misery in there. The only thing I didn't do wrong was I didn't take a drink. That's it.
Good.
So I know you mentioned this wasn't your first time.
Mm-hmm.
So roughly how many attempts have you taken at this sobriety thing?
Man, like actual attempts at sobriety, I would say one.
Define an actual attempt.
Because an actual attempt means that I put the work in. An actual attempt means that I wasn't just paying lip service, that I wasn't just reading shit off the walls, that I wasn't just in there bullshitting and, going to meetings half-assedly. You know what I mean? I went to JDAC. I don't even know what year it was, to be honest with you. But when I got out of JDAC, when I went to JDAC, they told me that I couldn't use drugs in any form, fashion, any kind of substances. And I was pretty beat down at the time. And that kind of stuck with me. Because my goal, honestly, was to go to JDAC to get out of oxys. That's what I was going to do. I was going to quit doing oxy so I didn't have drugs running my life, right? Little did I know drugs ran my life for years before that, no matter the shape, form, or fashion, But I wasn't ever dependent. You know what I mean? I wasn't physically dependent on anything until Oxycontin. But I got out of JDAC, started going to meetings, half-assed it, went back out. Shit got hard again, started going to meetings, half-assed it, went back out. And that was kind of the process until I was in college. Like I was going to get my associate's degree. And my goal was to just get a 4.0, right? I went down there and took the GED test. When I got out, I went down to the little administration's office, found something I was interested in, which was getting an associate's degree in mechanical or in science of whatever the fuck it's called, to be a mechanic, basically. But
church it up as much as you
right.
can.
Well, no, they church it up like good, bro. It sounds fucking legit. Like when I walked across the
stage. Do I need a PhD for that?
Right. I thought I was an engineer or some shit. But no, I started
mechanical arts degree.
yeah, something like that. Something stupid, bro.
Right.
But yeah, I started going to college and stuff, and then I started getting high again. And I still got bad kind of quick. I had about 6 months in of half-ass sober, half-ass dry time. You know what I mean? Like I was doing step work, but I wasn't committed to it. And calling my sponsor every once in a while and hitting meetings, just I guess more or less for the social aspect of it, if y'all know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my grades started dropping real quick, and I wanted to get a 4.0. That was my goal. I left I never completed anything, and I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get good grades. But I started fucking that up, and then I started like quickly stealing and fucking pawning shit, like right back to that same fucked up circle. And I woke up one day and was like, what the fuck am I doing? And by that time I was coming down off of pain pills. and I know this sounds stupid, but it was just Lortab, so it wasn't that bad, right? I'm serious. Like
Right,
the
yeah. That's how we
detox,
think. Yeah.
right? Well, the detox from fucking Lortab is nowhere near what it was with oxys. You know what I mean? So I called my boss and was like, dude, I need to work like every day for like the next 2 weeks. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I just need something to do. So that's what I did, dude. I stayed busy for weeks and quit fucking with people I was fucking with and started going to meetings again. And I started actually trying, right? I started actually trying to work steps um and then after that I got high one more time. Uh it was on the I was doing some shit I probably shouldn't have been doing with some people I probably shouldn't have been doing it with. And they were like, hey, can you get anything? And I was like, no, I don't do it anymore. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, can you try? And I was like, sure. What's that gonna hurt?
Real
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I tried, and nobody had anything, and I was cool with that. The next day, one of the people I called me back and was like, hey man, I can get some Roxy's. And I was like, okay. He's like, you still looking? And I was like, nah, I'm good, bro. Hung the phone up. And it's like everything I learned was gone. I had no defense. I picked the phone back up, called him, met him in a Walmart parking lot, was snorting Roxy. You know what I mean? And I'd left there, went to my best friend's house, and he struggling on and off for a long time. And his mom started lecturing. His mom was like, "You need to be more like Joe." And I'm like,
I
"Shit."
never heard anybody ever
Right.
say that.
How am I Roxy's right now?
Well, he didn't know.
Oh.
And she didn't know. And like I was playing it off pretty good till it all hit me and I was nodding out and shit. But I remember waking up the next day and I was like, dude, I was like, you got high one more time and you're over there lying and nodding out and fucking doing shit you're not supposed to do. Like this cycle is never gonna change. Like I'm always gonna be a fucking drug addict. No matter what, my life is always gonna be fucked if I put something in my system. And I went back to meetings and I talked to a dude and was like, hey man, like I need a sponsor. And he was like, okay. He's like, you already had a sponsor, like you've been coming around for a while. I was like, nah, like I need to seriously get into this. And he was like, cool, man. He's like, read the document, call me tomorrow. I was like, okay. And he's like, read Bill's story. And then we just started that cycle instead. You know what I mean? We started in the book, we started doing work, we started doing step work. And I made it through the steps with him. And I stayed sober ever since then, but I fell off and quit going to meetings and shit like that too. You know what I mean? I had I had my daughter in 2013, and then my son was born in 2015. My bad, but don't show him.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2015, and by that time, I had a house and I had a job and I had a car and I had a family and I had all this shit. And on the outside looking in, everything looked great, but from the inside looking out, I was fucking miserable. And I wasn't doing shit. I wasn't going to meetings. I let life get too busy for me to take care of me. I put everything in front of my recovery, and I was miserable. And my home life wasn't great anyway. You know what I mean? I had a couple of kids I loved, but other than that, like their mom and me, we never got along. It was a shit show there too. And she she started drinking and shit again. She was one of us. She started drinking and shit again. And I'm like, well, cool. If you can drink, drink. You know, if you can do whatever. If you're just going to drink some beer and shit or whatever, no big deal. But I can't do it. Well, she couldn't either. So, you know, the lying and the going out and the cheating and all that bullshit came right along with it. And finally I was done and she had moved out. And like I said, dude, I was miserable as fuck at that point. And I had been miserable for a long time, you know, because I have untreated alcoholism.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it's
That dry time can be just as rough as when we're using.
I think it can be
I think
worse.
it's worse,
And-
bro.
Like when I think about it, like I would probably rather be using than
Right.
dry.
Right,
Most of my suicide attempts or thoughts of suicide came when I was dry.
right,
Yeah.
right.
You know.
I don't know. I explained it to somebody the other day. like in the movie Shrek, where Shrek's like super mad, you know what I'm talking about? He's like at the birthday party and the kid's like, do the roar. You know what I mean? And he's fucking furious through the whole thing. But it's his kid's birthday party, and the only thing he's looking at is everything negatively. Like that was every day of my life. And then my answer to that was
restless discontent.
absolutely. My answer to that was just be fucking miserable. And then when shit got too rough and the kid's mom, you know, was too far gone and she had to go. And she had left and my kids weren't there. It was the first night I'd ever been without my kids. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to the liquor store. You know, I didn't have, it was my answer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have my kids. Fuck it, I'm getting drunk. And I left Big Lots in Shepherdsville. And I was heading to that little fucking liquor store next to Wendy's. And my phone rang before I got to the light. And it was her, and she was like, Jackson can't stay here. His allergies are bothering him. I think they had, you know, animals or something here before. Can you come get him? And I was like, fuck, absolutely. So I went and picked him up. And then the next night, I was back in the meetings. You know what I mean? Called my sponsor. Was like, look, bro, like, I know I ain't talked to you in a long fucking time, but like, I need you. And he's like, all right, cool. He's like, let's do this. And ever since then, man, I try to, in some way, form, or fashion, I try to stick with this program because I know when I don't, I'm fucked. You know what I mean? There's nothing that's gonna fucking fill the void that I have unless it's working with other alcoholics. It's reading the literature. It's, you know, going to meetings. It's the shit that I need to do to fill that void. Because during that whole time, when I'm dry, I'm trying to fill that fucking void.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's guns or motorcycles or whatever the case may be, dude. If I'm trying to fill that void with something else, I'm going to do it alcoholically. I mean, there was a point, dude, where I would get off work and I would go work with somebody else until 10 o'clock at night. And I was doing that 4 or 5 days a week. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't really even do anything with the money. You know? There was a point where I was, every dollar I got, I was buying guns and shit with. You know what I mean? There was a point to where I was buying motorcycles and trying to fix them up. And I gotta be honest with y'all, I never rode the motherfuckers. I was scared. Like, you see people out on the highway and shit, and I'm like riding around the neighborhood, like hoping I don't fall over.
So the thing, right? Like filling that void.
Right.
You know, I think, to my knowledge, the disease of alcoholism or drug addiction is the only disease that I can think of that will not go untreated. Right? No matter, it'll find a way to be treated. Like whether it's with recovery, um, drugs and alcohol, some toxic relationship, you know, gambling, food addiction, shopping. It will find some way to be treated.
Right. We're gonna
like it will not go untreated. Like it will grind you up, man. But that's the cool thing about like when we get sober. I want to kind of bring it back to something that you said earlier. We kind of have a choice now, but that's the thing about the way it's treated, right? We have a choice in how we treat it. Like we get a choice to treat it with recovery.
Right.
You know, we get a choice to seek the solution. Right. And you mentioned earlier that you were kind of somewhat doing the path. Right. And I was speaking to Jake today, and Jake's been helping this guy that he knows, and he told the guy today that it's like you've either got to be all in this thing, you're either all in or you're out.
Right.
You know, and we were talking about that, and that's so true. And you just brought that up. It's like you can't be just a little bit pregnant.
Right.
You know what I mean? You either are or you aren't.
What's funny is when somebody says that to you, it seems like a shitty ultimatum, right?
It is.
Right. But it seems like you're either, you know, all in or you can't do any of it. But and that's not the case. You can half-ass the fuck out of it and get nothing out of it. And that's what they mean. You know what I mean? If you don't put the work in and actually work the steps and work the program and find the spiritual solution to the problem,
you're fucked.
Then you're fucked. Yeah, because no matter what else there is, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, every meeting we go to, they read how it works.
Right.
And there's a line in there that says half measures avail us nothing.
Right.
It doesn't say half measures avail us half.
Right.
You know, because I used to think that, like, well, if I do half, I'll get half.
Right.
And that's really all I want. Like, if I can just put the least amount of effort in possible and just get enough to where I can get by, then I'm
Right.
okay with that. But every time I would do that, I would get nothing.
Right.
And I would end up on my ass.
Well, and the funny part is you think that you're getting half results. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not getting shit out of it.
No, because you're deteriorating on the inside.
Right.
You know, because like on the outside, like you mentioned, it looks like I'm doing okay.
Right.
You know, like my external world always got better.
Right.
You know, when I put the drink down, like everything, like my relationship started to get better. I was, you know, sleeping better. I'm eating again. I'm exercising, but I'm suicidal.
Right.
You know, maybe ready to be close to being homicidal.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I'm just wishing someone would.
Right.
Well, that's what happens to a lot of us too. We start to get feeling better. We start to get some things back, and because I know I've done it personally. You know, this isn't my first attempt at this, so things start getting better, and then I slowly start slacking. Right. And you had mentioned you've been sober for coming up on 13 years now, right?
Right.
So you had quit going to meetings for a while, and you stayed sober. When did that take place? Like, was that just a few years ago? Like, where you were kind of not going to meetings and then coming back?
When you got
around,
back in.
or-
Well, what's funny is, I guess it's not funny. It's kind of sad. After that whole experience that I had, where hey, I need to get back into this, I get busy again. You know what I mean? I do the same shit, and I get miserable again, and I'm like, fuck, what am I doing? But I would say, honestly, past 5 years, 6 years or so.
Well, the only reason I mention that is because I remember my last relapse when I went to treatment.
Right.
You know, we worked together for like 7 years.
Right.
And when I was in sales, we didn't talk a whole lot, just kind of in passing for the most part. But then when I came back from treatment and then I switched departments and now we were working together every day.
Right.
You were one of the first ones to come to me when I came back. And you were like, hey, where have you been? Why are you working down here now? But you already knew.
Yeah.
And then, you said, hey, are you involved in any type of programs? And that's how we got to talking.
Oh, so you guys didn't know that about each other before?
We had no idea that either
good.
one of us were,
Right.
because when I came to Cross, I was sober.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know Joe was in recovery, and I relapsed while I was working at Cross.
Right.
But I just remember we got to talking, and then, it kind of just, our relationship kept growing from there.
Right.
And it was just kind of like every day we're talking about getting better and things we can do.
Right.
And I just remember you were talking about you wanted to go to different meetings. You needed
I needed to do more.
Over, I've been sober now 3.5 years.
Right.
And I see you coming around to different meetings, and
Right.
now you're a part of our men's group that we do.
Right.
And that's why I was wondering, was it like around that time?
I would say, so I'd say 5-ish years ago, because I got to that point again to where I was miserable. And I was like, shit, I got to do something. So I started going to meetings again. I would say maybe one a week or something. You know what I mean? And I started kind of getting involved regularly, talking to my sponsor regularly and stuff like that. And I tried to stay like that and juggle everything else in life, right? And when I talked to you, and shit, we sat down and read some of the Dharma book, and we did all kinds of shit because I was
lunch
like,
breaks. Yeah,
right,
that's awesome.
because I was like, shit, I was like, well, it's never gonna hurt me to do more of this, and but I was to that point to where I was getting kind of miserable again, and my attitude was shit, and I wasn't exactly happy, and I could see it creeping back to where it was before. So then I was, you know, hitting meetings every once in a while and stuff like that, and talking to my sponsor and blah blah blah. And then when I started talking to you, I knew that you were connected more out here, right? Because everything I do is like Dixie Highway. Right. So it's always a fucking drive and it's always a hassle. But you were connected more where we're at. You know what I mean? And you're like, no, there's this meeting at this church and there's this, you know, you ever heard of Refuge? And, you know, we do this and we do this. And I was like, cool, man, let's do this.
And that I was just sitting here thinking about it. We've talked about it before. Like, I'm a firm believer that God puts people in your life
absolutely
on His timing.
Right.
And like, we had worked together for all those years and didn't know anything about each other. And then when I come back from treatment, you know, I think that was a God moment.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
putting you into my life, because that helped me so much. We would sit down on lunch breaks together and do stuff together, and that just strengthened, you know, my recovery and in turn it was helping you, you know, and now it's just you know, you're part of our men's group, our support group, and now we all work together. Like, it's just everything in God's timing, and I'm a firm believer that, you know, God puts people in your life as He sees fit. And like, I needed my relationship with Brian to come when it happened, and then I needed that relationship to form with you, and you know, God opened that door and set that in motion.
Well, it's funny because I remember whenever I spoke at your celebration, I said "fuck" a whole lot. I remember I said this, and I mean this, man. Like, I went to basically tell you, hey, I'm here if you need help. You know what I mean? Because I know how it is when you first get sober. You know, shit gets rough. Hey, you know, if nobody else here and you're struggling, holler at me. But like, because of that, we built a relationship, and you've done so much more for me than I think I've ever done for you. You know what I mean? And that's showing me the shit out here. You know what I mean? Showing me different avenues. Like, hey, man, have you read this? Have you checked this out? Have you heard of this guy? Have you listened to this guy speak? You know, or hey, we do this Thursday night men's group, and I needed all that shit because I heard it all the time, right? Everybody hears it. It's one of those fucking AA sayings is stay in the middle of the boat, right? Mm-hmm. And I never was in the middle of the boat ever. You know what I mean? I'm out there paddling my ass off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sweating and shit. Yeah. Right. But, dude, my peace of mind and where I'm at today is so much better from being in the middle of the boat. You know what I mean? And I highly recommend it, dude. Like, get a home group, get a support group. And you hear that shit all the time. It's when you don't have it and then you get it that you're like, holy shit.
It clicks.
Right. Like, duh, they've been telling me this for a fucking reason. But I'm hard headed, bro. I learn everything the hard way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I got to fuck it up 10 times before I get it.
Yeah. Dude, I was talking to my sponsor the other day, and he tells me this all the time, but he was like, man, you're blessed. You know, like, the three of us are blessed because we get to work in an environment where we are around each other. Right. You know, we have recovery around us basically all the time. Right. You know, like at work, you know, I've pulled up on you a bunch of times, like, dude, this guy. Right. You know, I got this resentment, or you do it with me. Absolutely. You know, or how do I handle this? You know, like, and we talk all the time. You know, like, we're really blessed because, you know, my sponsor was telling me, he's like, I had that for years where I worked with a guy and I don't have it anymore. And he was like, and I get to hear you talk about this stuff. He was like, I'm just so glad that you have that because it's not just us. Like, I mean, Greg works there. Like, there's people that we can bounce things off of all the time. We don't even have to pick up a phone. Right. You know, it's just like, hey,
and
they
help me. And they get it. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, okay, cool.
And a lot of times we don't even have to go to somebody. It's just like, hey, dude, what's up?
Yeah, you know, right?
Like, I can tell you got a little steam coming out of your ears right now. What's going on? You know, but I just think we're so blessed, dude, that you know, we get the opportunity to be surrounded by, you know, people with strong recovery.
Right.
You know, when we left the meeting Wednesday night, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I saw you talking to that new guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, my man, like that just, it made me so happy, you know, because like I've seen, like I haven't known you nearly as long as that,
Right.
maybe 2 years roughly, but I've really got to know you in the last year, year and a half, somewhere around there. But there's just been so much growth, you know, and like you're starting to speak up more and be more vocal in the meetings and trying to lead by example and stuff like that. And man, that just carries a lot of weight.
Right.
I respect the shit out of that. Like when I see that, I'm just like, you know, because I said, did you get asked you? I said, did you get a new sponsee? And you're like, no. And I was like, oh, I was like, the way you were talking to him, I thought maybe he asked you to sponsor him. You're like, no, I just went up to him. He was new, so I started talking to him. I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Right.
I was like, that's what we do. I was
Right.
like, that's awesome. I was like, I didn't see anybody else talking to him. You know, it's like that's good.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're supposed to do, man. That the goal is to make somebody feel welcome, because you can tell somebody to keep coming back 100 times. You know what I mean? But if you keep coming back to an environment you're not welcome in, pretty soon you're not going to fucking come back.
Yeah, come back to what?
Right, come back to
You
right,
know?
right. And I mean, I hated feeling that way going to meetings. You know, like I hated going into meetings, and I just feel alone because I mean, we already felt alone for so fucking long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I got a chance to help somebody who, I mean, the dude spoke up and said it was his first time in AA meeting. Somebody needed to talk to him.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And he's fresh out of rec. You know what I mean? He's trying. You know, his story's similar to yours, bro. He works at Ford, but he don't want to go back to Ford because it's a shitty environment.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, and it was cool, man. And I told him, I was like, you know what's crazy? And he was like, what? I was like, if you put the work in this program, you can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in any circumstance, anytime.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, bro. Like anywhere.
Because some of that freedom.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Like, there, and you kind of touched on that earlier, right? It was like being dry is not being free.
No.
You know, it's hell on earth.
Absolutely.
You know, at least it was for me.
Right.
You know, it's like because
Absolutely.
at that point, like I don't have a solution.
No.
All I have is problems.
Right.
And if I have nothing but problems, I'm going to find a solution.
Right.
And it's going to be an unhealthy one.
Right.
It's
Right.
not. It don't just affect us though. Like now,
Right.
my wife is feeling the effects if I'm dry.
Right.
My children,
Yeah.
my coworkers. You know, it's
Right.
shit show for everybody.
For everybody. Yeah.
Everybody involved is catching the rat.
Catching strays.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
When I was talking about earlier, like maybe 5 years ago or whatever, is I was with Lauren and she was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You just seem real short and irritable." And I was like, "Yeah, I need to start going back to
Man, you've
meetings."
been reading my book.
Right.
Don't
Man, my
me
book.
right.
Don't
Right.
me right.
But yeah, and I mean, you know, I was like, "Damn, she's right. I know it. I need to do this differently before I end up back at that point that I was already at." And that's why I said, dude, I've done this shit wrong so much. And the only thing I did right was not take a drink. And God has showed up for me every time, like, look, dumbass, you know what you need to do. Let's go do it.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for that. And, you know, it doesn't matter what my God or who he is. And that's the best part about this program. You know what I mean? Is I can call it whatever, but he shows up in my life when I'm fucking up. And he's like, Joe, go do the shit you need to do to be healthy. And I'm like, cool, bro. You know. But I want to say this too. If you stay in the solution, it's so much better. Yeah. If you don't get to that point of life kicking your ass before you go back to the solution, if you constantly stay in the solution, stay with a support group, stay going to meetings, stay with a home group, stay with a sponsor, stay with, you know, people in your life who give a shit, who work the same program as you, and who will help you and call you out on your bullshit, the fucking quality of life is immensely better.
Mm-hmm.
So that I feel like is a good way to lean into something Brian and I were talking about. Why don't you ask him what we were talking about before he got here about his whole football team and
Right. Yeah. So we were kind of talking, I was thinking a little bit today about excuses, right? Excuses that people make for why they can't meet with a sponsor, why they can't go to meetings, why they can't meet up to do step work, why they can't have service commitments. And the number one reason, or why they can't sponsor people, right? The number one reason people give is, I don't have time.
Right.
Right. I just don't have time. Man, I'd love to help you. I just don't have time.
Right.
You know, I'd love to meet up, but I just don't have time. It's all bullshit, right?
Right.
These are all excuses.
Right.
Right. And so, in the way that this segues into you have how many kids?
17.
Grand total, we have 43. No, I'm just playing. We have 7 kids altogether.
So you have 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
You do karate with one of your kids,
Mm-hmm.
or taekwondo, right? Do you do side work?
Sometimes,
right?
Yeah.
And then
Cheerleading,
yeah, ballet.
Right.
I'm really
good at it.
Twinkle Toe Joe.
Right.
But so you do all of these things, right? And then you also own a rental property that you do a little maintenance on and stuff, try to keep up with and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But you still find time to help others, go to meetings, and stay involved, right? Stay in the middle, like you said, in the middle of the boat and work your program.
Right.
So what is other people's excuse? Like if you can do all that,
right,
there's obviously time. So how do you make time for all that stuff? Like how do you balance that, or how do you not make excuses? And how do you know what I'm saying?
I just do it.
Right.
That's it. I mean, honestly, I'm lucky. Even though she's not one of us, Lauren picks up a lot of the slack when I need to do shit.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she's mad about it, and sometimes she's not. But she knows, like, wholeheartedly, I have to do this shit, right? I don't have to be super selfish about it. I've done that. You know what I mean? And here lately, I've been trying not to be. Let's make it work. Oh, I can't go to this meeting. Okay, cool. There's this one, there's this one, there's this one. You know what I mean? Oh, I told Evan and Brian I would do a podcast with them. Is that cool? Yeah, but I have something to do, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Do what you got to do. If I'm a few minutes late, I'm a few minutes late, which I was a few minutes late. And, I'm lucky to have her to be able to take a lot of that so I can do the stuff I need to do. Because I had all those excuses too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before Lauren came along, I was raising 2 kids on my own. You know what I mean? And when I would make it to meetings, it was, hey, Mom, can you watch the kids so I can go to this meeting? Or, hey, this is going on. I need a little bit of help. And people would chip in, ask for help.
Yeah.
Because like I said, if all that shit is going to go in front of your recovery, you're going to lose it. You're going to come so damn close to losing it that you're going to realize, oh, shit, I really need to get in the middle of the boat. Because paddling on the side sucks, bro.
Yeah, and we don't have a chapter in the book called "Into Excuses," right?
Right.
Or "Into Whining."
Right.
But we do have one called "Into Action."
Right.
Right, and that's what it takes.
Right.
You don't have. You mentioned this a couple of times too. Like you don't have to do it perfect.
Right.
You can you can get C's across the board. You can get some D's.
Right.
It's like that's okay. Like, but what's important is that you're trying, that you're doing it, that you're putting in the action to get better, instead of just sitting on the sidelines and just waiting. Oh, you know what? When I can do it perfectly, then I'll start. Because that day's not coming.
No, I mean you can get F's as long as you learn from that shit and move forward. Because I mean, as you can tell,
most of us do.
Right, as you can tell from my story, dude, I failed all kinds of ways.
Yeah, I mean that's how we grow.
Right.
We grow through adversity and through failing.
Right.
I don't get better when things are going good.
Right.
I usually don't, because I'm not desperate, right? I don't have a lot of motivation when I'm just treading water and things are going good and I'm not hurting, so.
Pain's a motivator.
Pain, it is, like I can't just totally rely on that, but it will motivate me to get started.
Right.
You know, it'll help me kind of just prime myself to get going, to get moving. And like I said, it doesn't matter how far down the road we are. We just got to be on the right road.
Right.
That's what matters. Am I
Right.
on the right road, going in the right direction?
Right.
You know, and I just got to keep going. You know, I can't stop.
Right.
And it's all right to fail
Yeah.
every once in a while. You know, I heard a quote the other day, and it had me thinking. I was listening to this speaker, and how do you say it? I'm gonna try not to butcher it, but he said, you know, I wish you to be warm when the world wishes you to be cool. And he says, and I wish you success sufficient to your needs, but I wish you failure to temper that success.
Mm.
You know,
And they're dropping some
man.
fucking cold quotes.
Right. He's like, I'm gonna butcher this, but he's got to get him down perfectly.
Yeah, I left a part of it out because I can't remember what all he said.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
you fooled me.
Right.
But you know, we have to experience some failure to keep growing,
Right.
even in
Right.
recovery, in our
Yeah.
day-to-day lives and in recovery as well. I failed at several things in my life, and I
Absolutely.
have fucked up in recovery,
Right.
even on this last 3.5 years. Like,
Right.
you know, thank God it hasn't been. I went back to using,
Right. Right. Right.
but I have fucked up. I haven't done this thing perfect by any means.
Right.
You
No,
know,
and
I
even
have
let's
hurt
say
people, I
you
have
did.
done- right, I have done all kinds of shit wrong, but I'm
Right.
still here.
It's a good thing that you haven't done it perfect, right? Because does the perfect person help God? Right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm perfect, if I come into AA and I'm perfect, who's going to identify with me?
Right.
Who's going to want to get to know me?
Right.
Who's going to be able to? If I've done everything perfect, I'm like, man, he has no experience with anything because he's fucking perfect.
Right. Everybody
You
look
know,
out for
I need the
Jesus all
fuck
day.
ups, right? The fuck ups help us
Right.
because then I can, as long as I work through them and overcome them, then I can go help someone else that's going to do that same fuck up.
Well, that's like when a newcomer comes in, right? They're beat down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they don't have anything to contribute, you know what I mean? And they're feeling worthless. But when they speak up and they're like, hey, I'm struggling, I can't stop drinking or using, and I'm, miserable, whatever. Even that little bit is helpful
Mm-hmm.
because somebody came in one time and they're like, I can't quit thinking about using. And it brought me back to that point to where I was when I lived like that before these 10-step promises came true in my life. And it made me realize that I'm truly grateful for this program
Mm-hmm.
because it's easy to forget. You know what I mean? It's easy to forget that pain because shit got so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear that, I'm like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, this person is at the very bottom and they're failing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, their whole life is a shit show. I mean, we've all been there. That's how it is. Your whole life, because you wouldn't get there if everything was fucking, if your life was perfect and everything was fucking sunshine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it reminded me of when you were talking about if I was perfect, you know what I mean?
That's a good point because we don't know who God's going to use to help us or who we're going to help, right? We like to think we know, like who we're going to help, but we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I might say something in a meeting or just in passing or something that might help somebody. I'm not even really talking to them. Or somebody like you just said brings up how they're struggling and it helps me because I'm like, oh man, maybe I don't want to go back to that.
Absolutely.
So I need to start getting on my grind a little bit
Right,
more.
right.
You know, so but you know, if I'm closed minded, I go into a meeting thinking, well, I've got almost 5 years sobriety.
Right.
That guy's got 5 days. He can't help me. That's bullshit, bro.
Right.
Like that drives me crazy when people say, well, you're new, you don't have nothing to say. Sure you do.
Say it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you can help somebody that's got 5 minutes of sobriety. You
Right.
can help anybody.
You know, somebody's got 50 years.
There's enough newcomers out there to help us change the world.
Right.
But a lot of times they don't feel like they can share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
sometimes
because of
they're
that
told
old head mentality.
Yeah, and which brings up another point, right? About being open-minded.
Right.
It's like, well, we tell newcomers be honest, open-minded, and willing.
Right.
But me, I've got 15 years. I don't have to be open-minded. Like, what kind of rationale is that?
I think that's where we fail. I
It's
think
selfishness.
that's right. I think that's where we fail. I think that people become so fucking
They forget.
right. Well, they become so comfortable in their sobriety.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like this has worked for me for so long that I'm doing just fine. And they may be doing just fine, but they could be doing better. It's just like I went to a meeting. It was a meeting in Mount Washington when that Wednesday night meeting was at that other church, right? And I heard two people talking. They weren't even talking to me. I was just meddling. You know what I mean? But one of them was like, "You meditate a lot, don't you?" And they were like, "Yeah." And they were like, "I can tell by the way that you present yourself." And I was like, "Huh? Maybe I'm missing something, right?" So I started getting up in the morning and doing prayer and meditation, right? I didn't just rush out the door praying. I tried to put some time in to do prayer and meditation, and that was me ear hustling and being open minded.
Mhm.
And I've grown so much more because of that. You know what I mean? And I feel like that everybody in this program can grow. Nothing's one sided. Being open minded is probably one of the biggest blessings you can have because it's just like the Dharma thing, bro. It's just like that, if I would have been like, no, I work in AA program, I wouldn't learn shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't. And that's also something I'm truly grateful for because of this program. I know I don't know shit.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. You teach me what you know.
That's a good point because that's that's the whole sole purpose of why we're supposed to be in these meetings.
Right.
Like that's our primary purpose is to carry the message to other alcoholics who still suffer. We're supposed to teach the 12 steps recovery. We're supposed to teach that to other people. We're a room full of spiritual teachers.
Right.
Like we're not supposed to go in there and just talk about how my fucking weed eater wouldn't start and how I couldn't find a babysitter.
Right.
And that type of shit.
So
like somebody, just like that's not why we're supposed to be there. We're supposed to be there to show other people how cool life can be in sobriety and show them how we got from where they're at now in the gutter to B, to where we're free.
Right.
And that's why we're there, is to teach people that stuff. And I heard a guy say in a meeting one time, and I just got a kick out of it. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. He was like, he's speaking, and he's like, there's no teachers in AA. And I was like, this fucking guy. And then 30 seconds later, he's like, one thing I learned in recovery is I got to remain teachable. I was like, but there's no teachers. I was like, who's teaching? I was like, who's teaching you, bro? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, I understand, like, a lot of times under, like, this guise of, like, false humility. We want to be like, oh, I got to remain humble, so I can't teach you something. It's like, no, that's not what that means.
Right.
Like, being humble means that it's not that I walk around with my head down and like, I'm just glad to be sober today. That's not what it is. It's like, I'm here to show you that I got the coolest thing going and I didn't have nothing to do with it because God did it.
Right.
And I'm going to show you how it worked in my life.
How God did it in my life.
Yeah. Like that's what humility is about.
Right.
It's about knowing where my power comes from. And it doesn't come from me. It came because somebody else taught me.
Right.
So then I therefore have to teach somebody else.
Right. And the cool part about the program is the way that you teach and the way that you teach and the way that I teach and the way that the dude 3 chairs down teaches.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is because we've all worked these steps differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean differently like we worked them in different orders. And I don't mean differently like we worked them, but we did half of this and 3/4 of this. I mean, we did all of the steps, but we all did it a little different. So if one way doesn't work for you, guess what? Somebody else probably has a way that'll help.
Yeah, so the message is the same.
Right.
How we deliver it is different.
Right.
You know, because, and we've talked about this on here before, is that like some people need a real kind and loving hand
Right.
and someone to just baby them, you know, and just be there with love and tolerance. And some people just need, you know, Amy was talking about this when she was speaking the other night. She's not going to hear that. She'll steal your car.
Right.
You know, like that's
Right.
what she was saying. Like, but she needed somebody to get in her face and
Right.
be rough, and that's okay. That's not mean.
Yeah, I think for me, that's what I need.
That's what I do too.
I need somebody to tell me straight how it is if I'm fucking up.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I have guys in my life that will call me out
Right.
and do that. And I think that stems from I'm such a fucking mama's boy.
Right.
And mom was always there.
Right.
And was always, it's okay.
Right.
We'll get it next time.
You need somebody like
I need somebody to be like, no, look, motherfucker.
Right.
Quit being a fucking idiot.
You're being a pussy right now.
Right.
This is what you need to fucking do.
Right.
Yeah.
This is, I need somebody to just tell me straight up how it is.
So this is funny, man. And when the first sponsor I got, right, it was this old black dude named Charles, crazy as fuck, right? And honestly, dude, I just think he was looking for somebody to sponsor. You know what I mean? And I'm not mad at him for this at all. But he was like, you want to work the steps? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, all right, cool, I can take you to the steps. And I was like, okay, cool. He's an old AA guy. I was like, but I don't want to work it through AA. And he's like, what? And I was like, no. I was like, you see this NA step study guide? And he picked it up with both hands like, yep. And I was like, this is how I want to work the steps. And he was like, okay. He's like, we can do it like that. He didn't have a fucking clue how to work the steps.
Yeah, he should have sent you to
somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how manipulative I was, right? That's how I worked my program, the Joe Wills way. You know what I mean? But of course I failed at it. And of course he failed at it, and I got high again. And the sponsor that I got after that, when my ass was on fire and I knew I was fucked, he was like, read the doctor's opinion. You know what I mean? We're going to work the 12 steps out of the big books at Alcoholics Anonymous. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you need to find somebody else. Not let's work the 12 steps of whatever program you want to, the Joe Wells way. And that's what I needed. I needed somebody to be like, and he wasn't an ass, don't get me wrong. Like, he was super cool. Like, we laughed all the time. We had a good time. But like, I needed somebody to tell me, once again, I don't know shit. Stop trying to manipulate the process. You're going to do it just like this.
Yeah.
And as y'all have known for years, I identify as an alcoholic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Any knowledge I have about this disease comes from this book.
Mm-hmm.
Anything I try to tell people to pass on knowledge comes from some form of this book. And that was because that guy was like, look, this is what we're going to do. And if you want to be sober, this is what we need to do. And if you don't want to do it this way, cool, find somebody else. Not, sure, I'll work the NA fucking study guide. And I've never.
Something I have no experience with.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. But
bro.
We're all sick, man. But yeah, I think you mentioned the book, right? And we refer to it. It's a textbook, right? And a textbook is something you refer to. It's not. It's a lot different than a novel,
right?
Like I might have I've got some John Grisham books out there that are really good, but I'm only going to read them once,
right?
But I read this book a lot,
right?
And we refer to it. Like
we do it at work.
I go to him about something. He's like, to the book. Like, what's the book say? And I've asked you that before. Like, what's the book say? I know who we go, like, okay. And
if we don't know, we find it.
Right. Like, that book has never steered me wrong. It's never lied to me. It's told me some things I didn't want to hear.
Absolutely.
But it's some things that I need to hear.
Yeah. There was one night, I think you were there before our men's group on Thursday. And I don't remember what it was. Something was going on. And I remember us having a conversation, and I was like, I just think there's some shit that happens in your life that the answer's not here in this book. I just think that, you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what was going on.
I don't either.
And you just kind of were like, yeah, maybe you're right. Well, maybe you're right.
Hasn't been shit.
And then, of course, it was my night to bring the topic to the group. And the whole time I'm there, I'm like, man, like this was eating me up. And I just kept telling myself, there's no answer in the book. Like, what, that's what I'm going to talk about. And then for some reason, as I'm driving there, and I get there early, and I'm just sitting there thinking about it more and more. And next thing you know, I'm in the book. I'm like, the answer's right fucking there. Like, I found it. It's right here. Like, I opened right to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come in there and I'm like, so this is going on. And I explain everything. And I'm like, but here's my fucking answer and my problem right here.
And I do remember that.
And I just remember Brian, you just looked at me and you said, man, I didn't have a single doubt that you wouldn't figure this out.
Right.
Right.
You know,
I already knew
it was right here,
yeah.
you know.
Like,
but I was like, it's just not in here. There's just nothing. There's nothing for this. Shit happens that we ain't got nothing for it, and that's not true. You can find it all. The answer. It's crazy how it works like that. Because I really don't remember what it was at that time, but it had nothing to do with. It wasn't even AA related.
Yeah.
It was just life.
Right.
It was just life showing up at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's amazing like how much is in this book.
That book is designed for living. You know, we've heard that a lot. And I was talking to, when I was talking to Jake earlier today, you know, he was talking about how he took some suggestions, right? I'd given him some suggestions about some stuff and, you know, that he was working through. And I was like, look, you need to inventory it. You need to put it on paper. You need to do this. If you harmed anybody, you need to go make it right. You know, go to God, 6 and 7.
Right.
You know, you got to do the whole deal, right? You got to do the 10th step, basically, is what I was telling him to do. And he calls me today and he's like, man, like everything worked out. He was like, it's so crazy how like I just like started doing this stuff and like things worked out. I was like, I mean, it's like it's almost like the program works. I was like, isn't that funny how that happens? You know? And he was just like, dude, you know how you talk to me, dude, it does. You know, he was all like this. I could tell he
probably ecstatic.
He was, dude, and he was just on fire. And he's been helping this little guy that he works with, and the guy's not really been really receptive to the help, but it's helping Jake because he's getting out himself and he's helping him. Right. And I was like, he's like, dude, he was like, is this what sponsorship feels like? I mean, he's not sponsoring the guy, but he was like, he got him a big book and he showed him some stuff in the book and all this stuff. And he told him some of his story. He's basically 12 steps in the guy.
Right.
And, but he's not actually sponsoring him.
Right.
And he was just like, is this what sponsorship feels like? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like, because I felt that way when the light came on with you. And I felt that way when the light came on with Jeremy and Chance and Chris and True and all these guys, right? And I was like, but they're not all going to get it. Right. And I was like, and that's okay. I was like, you're planting seeds right now. It's like, he may never get it. I was like, he might not even be a real alcoholic.
Right.
I was like, but you're doing your job.
If he ever
you're showing up,
right,
you're doing what you're supposed to do,
right?
And guess what? Now you're getting the rewards for it,
right? And if this guy ever really is like, shit, I'm an alcoholic,
right?
Then he has a book,
yeah,
and he has a homie to reach out to,
right?
So I mean, right there are two very powerful things, and then the next thing he would have to do, of course, is go to a meeting, start working some steps, you know, sponsor the whole 9. And he's set up for fucking success just because Jake is there doing his job as 12 stepping somebody and talking to somebody who says they're fucking struggling.
Yeah, and this is the guy who thought, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like newcomers, how they a lot of times think that they don't have anything to bring, right? And Jake, I remember the first time that he talked to me about this guy, he was just like, I don't know, you know, like I don't know, how am I going to help somebody? You know, like I don't even know if I'm like
right.
solid right now. I was like, that's exactly why you need to help this guy.
Give it a shot.
You know, I was like, what are you going? You're not going to fuck him up anymore. He's already fucked up.
Right.
You know, that's what Josh told me when I got my first guy that asked me to sponsor. I was like, dude, I'm scared. He's like, why are you scared? And I was like, because what if I fuck him up? He's like, he's already fucked up. He's like, he ain't got nothing to worry about.
Right.
He's like, you got your experience. You got a big book? Yeah. There you go.
Right.
That's all you need to do. Follow the book. That's all you got to do. The closer we adhere to what's in the book, the better the results. Are we going to do it perfectly? No. Are you going to put a little different spin on a certain step than I am? Or are you going to go at maybe a different pace or something? Sure. Like
Right.
it says in there, we all in our own way carrying the message. But the message doesn't change. The message has to stay the
The
same.
message is still the
That's
message.
where kind of we get off
Right.
the page sometimes is someone's carrying something other than the message.
Right.
And that's where newcomers get confused. You know,
Right.
just if you think I was thinking about this today, you know, if you go into a meeting, say you're a newcomer, and we've all been there, right? You go into a meeting and you're talking to somebody before the meeting. You know, I'm talking to Evan. Evan's like, man, you need to get a sponsor.
Right.
You need to work steps, and that's like priority number one. You need to do that. You need to get going, right? I'm like, okay, cool. You know, then I talk with someone after the meeting, like, dude, you don't need to worry about the steps right now.
Right.
You need to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. You just need to get in meetings. And then I'm confused. You know,
Which
then
one's the right
I'm
answer?
like, what do I do?
Right.
So I don't do either.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I just try to do it my way.
Right. You're
But the
gonna get
problem
a
is-
sponsor and go to, you know,
But I'm
60 meetings.
I thought I'd go to 45 meetings
Right.
in 90 days, and I work some of the steps.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and I kind of get a sponsor.
Right.
You know.
I think that's why it's important to find, like we were talking about, you know, find that sponsor who is gonna look, bro, this is what we need to do. This is how we're gonna do it, and do it that way. You know what I mean? And of course, when you first come in, you don't know how to do any of that shit. You don't know how to look for a sponsor. Like, find somebody who has something you want. You're like, oh, that dude out there has a Corvette. I want a Corvette.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's not what the fuck you need. You need
No.
to find the person, and they say find the person who is properly armed with the facts about themselves, right? And I didn't know what that meant for every.
No.
You know, I'm like, okay, what the hell does that mean? You know, but I think when it came time for me to get my sponsor, I think that's what I needed. He knew how to work the program the way he was going to work it, and he knew where he lacked and where he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And properly learned about the facts about himself. I think that's kind of like with me, for example. I know no matter what I do, I cannot fill this fucking void, right? And I know what works for me, and I know, you know, how to look for me in situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want me in situations. I want God in situations, you know? And I think that's what they mean, basically. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you, no matter what it is, I can tell you nothing's going to fix me unless it's a spiritual answer, right? And I know that from experience. I don't know that because my sponsor told me that. I know that because I fucked it up enough and tried it so many different ways, you know? So I know that, right? And I know what my defects are. And I know most of the time when they're going to crop up, you know? And I know the answer for that's God. And I think, honestly, if you can find a sponsor who can do all of that and get you through these steps through the book, dude, you'll win. But when you first come into the rooms, you don't know any of that shit. You just hear the slogans, you know? So,
I think when you're looking for someone properly armed with the facts, and I agree with everything that you just said, that what I'm looking for, you know, in hindsight, you know, I didn't know this when I was new, you know,
absolutely not.
but in hindsight, what I'm looking for is someone who understands the problem,
Right.
understands the solution,
Right.
and knows how to get me from problem to solution.
Right. That's simple enough.
That's what I need. I don't need someone that can be my best friend.
Right.
I don't need, now if that develops, that's great, you know, but I don't need somebody to wipe my ass.
Right.
You know, I don't need someone to be a dictator.
Right.
I don't need someone to do all that other happy horse shit. You know, what I need is just someone to get me from A to B.
Right.
Do you know how to have a spiritual experience as a result of these steps? Yes. Cool.
Right.
You know,
right.
like I don't care. They don't have to have the job. Like, don't get me wrong, like that stuff's cool.
Right.
Like, no, I want to have someone that's looks like they have their shit together,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, but
but that's not important.
Right. All of that's irrelevant to the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
that's why I just believe when you first come in, like just get a sponsor.
Yeah.
Like because honestly, you hear somebody say they're properly armed with the facts about themselves.
Yeah.
How the fuck do I know they know that?
Right.
Yeah.
How the fuck do I know that?
I would say half of them don't.
Just
Right.
just get a sponsor that has at least worked the steps.
And get started.
Maybe they're not properly armed.
Hopefully in the
Hopefully they
program
are.
that you're working.
Right.
You know, just get started because I've had several sponsors. We've all had multiple sponsors.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just get started and get in the solution.
Mm-hmm.
That's
what matters.
That's
Right.
what matters.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
like
solid
none of that
point.
other stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Just-
you're going to hear all that shit, but you're right. If you,
yeah. Like how the
You
fuck
go to
am
a
I supposed
meeting-
to know 2 days sober
right,
that Brian knows is properly armed with the facts?
Right.
Because I got them holstered, right?
That's
right,
what I'm
right.
saying.
You want some
How the fuck
facts?
do I know that?
It's like a
You know
fucking
what I mean?
Rolodex.
Right.
Yeah, like
Which fact you want?
Right.
yeah. So just get started.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's just like, you know, I don't know what my higher power is. Cool. Who gives a fuck? Pray. You know what I mean? Just get started. And I think that's the answer to everything in this program is just get started. Because if you,
Mhm.
I don't know who said it, but they're like, if I get dropped off in the middle of the woods somewhere and don't know where I am I going to sit there in it and just die? No, I'm going to start walking. Start fucking walking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just do the work. And sooner or later, all the blessings of the program is going to come to you because you're going to find that spiritual connection. You're going to have that spiritual awakening. You're going to figure out if,
cause and effect.
right, you'll figure out if this guy who's sponsoring you is right for you or not. You're like, no, maybe.
Yeah, it's so irrelevant, like you said, to the process because I didn't meet my sponsor until I was out of treatment.
Right.
But he was already my sponsor. Like I got him while I was in treatment. I just
Right.
called him. So I gave him his number and I called him.
Right.
And they were just like, keep calling him.
Right.
You know, and I met him and I was like, this guy's nothing like me.
Right.
You know, like he was, but he wasn't. You know,
Right.
like, and it didn't matter.
Right, because you had already started the process of
Yeah.
what you needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not out here looking like, don't get me wrong, like we need to put some thought into it.
Right.
You know, like I need to make sure that, like Evan said, like this person has done the work,
Right.
that they know how to get me from A to B. But outside of that, man, like
Right. Who gives a shit?
who gives a shit? Get started. If it doesn't work out, get somebody else. You know, it's
That's
like,
the failure part.
Yeah. it's like, hey,
Cool,
this,
I learned
man,
something.
this ain't working. I need to get somebody else.
Right.
You know, like that's okay.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. I
And
appreciate
if the person has a problem with that, then you just made a good decision.
Absolutely. Well, they are not properly on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They're full of ego.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's good shit. You know, you mentioned like the second step. You know, like that's one of the things that I hear a lot. Just nuts. And I think we've talked about it. It's hard for you to say, you know, I go on a meeting, you know, and a lot of times around the area that we go on meetings, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere else, but if it's like, say, the second month of the year, it's February,
Right.
people talk about the second step
Right.
a lot, right? And you'll go in there and somebody will say, I'm working on step 2. You know, I'm stuck on step 2. Going there the next week, I'm still working on step 2. And it's like, why? Like, I don't understand. Because if you go by the book, it's one question.
Right.
God either is or he isn't.
Right.
Is there something out there bigger than you? Well, yeah. All right, well, let's fucking move on. You know, but you know, if you don't believe that, okay, we can talk about it. But
Right.
if you believe that there's something out there bigger than you, then
Cool.
we can move on.
Right.
We can
We'll figure out what that is
Yeah,
later.
yeah, because like I said, it's cause and effect. If I do certain things happen.
Right.
You know, like if I do that work, I am guaranteed to have some kind of spiritual awakening.
Right.
I don't have to understand it. You know, it's like I use this analogy with Jace one day that if I go to the gym, right, doesn't matter if I believe in weightlifting or not. If I lift weights, I'm going to get stronger.
Right.
It's cause and effect. Whether it doesn't matter how I feel about it.
Right.
If I'm like, I don't believe in resistance training, but I do it, I'm going to get stronger.
Yeah.
That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So regardless if I believe that AA or any program will work, if I do it, I will get the results of it.
And it's just like in the gym. If you buckle down though and you concentrate, and you work that fucking system to that resistance training, your results are so much better. It's just like the program. If you buckle down and you work those steps and you actually put the work in and actually understand it, you know what I mean, and you find that higher power, then the results are so much better.
Absolutely. Every time.
Right.
And I know, like for me, I didn't fully understand. Every time I open that book, I see something new.
Right.
So it's like we're never going to fully understand it.
When it's going to mean something different at different points.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good point, right? The book always says the same thing.
Right.
But the way that we interpret it changes.
Right.
You know, what it says doesn't change.
No.
But
it's where we're at.
Where I'm at, I'm like, okay. Like we mentioned being open-minded earlier. You know, like my understanding of things has evolved and changed so much. Like there was stuff like 2 years ago that, no, it's like this.
Right.
And then as I grow and I get more into the book, I'm like, I was wrong about this.
Yeah.
Like those poor guys that I sponsored.
Right.
You know,
you got to call them and be like, hey,
you know, I'm sorry, bro.
Right.
Yeah, I was wrong about that. You know. This was fun.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Good time.
Sitting around talking shit.
Right. Right. I expected questions.
Told you.
I need the list.
Yeah.
Just kick it raw, bro.
Right. Right.
See where it goes, man.
Yeah, we're sure.
You know, this like you are living proof. You know, it's no scripts, just
Right.
give it to us straight.
So not to gas you up too much, but you know, I did mention earlier that, you know, like I've noticed that you've been stepping up a lot lately, and you know, I appreciate it because we need more people, you know, out in the trench fighting the fight with us, right? We're losing the battle. We don't have time. But another thing you brought up earlier that I've always admired is your discipline when it comes, and that's probably not a word that you're used to hearing about yourself, right? Just
No, absolutely.
but you know, when it comes to prayer and meditation, and starting your day over at any time of the day, like I go to God.
Right.
You know, you tell me all the time, like, you know, this has been going on, but I go to God. And it's like, man, like it takes a lot of discipline, man, but it's awesome. You know, it's good.
The crazy part is because, I mean, of course, I'm not perfect. I mean, as y'all know me, you know.
Well, I take all of that.
Right. Yeah. Fuck me. But no, but I just try. Right. It's just like what you said. Just do it. You know what I mean? And it's not that hard because the results are so much better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard because I know when I do that, when I get up in the morning, if I get up, splash some water on my face, drink some water, I do some yoga. When I get done with that, I usually read the daily reflection or some form of the daily reflection, and then I'll sit down and I go through my shit. And I'm powerless. I remind myself of that. I reflect on the 24 hours ahead. I pray. You know what I mean? And then I usually, whatever I read, I'll sit down and I'll actually think about it. And then I'll journal. You know what I mean? And I do all that shit on my phone. It's a fucking app. You know, and it takes me straight through what the big book tells me I need to do in the morning on an app. I can do it while I'm shitting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And ever since I started doing that regularly, everything just seems to roll better because I start my day out with a positive thing. I start my day out with God. You know what I mean? And if I start my day out with God and in positivity, nothing's really bad enough to bring me all the way down. And it's just the results of this program.
I think that's like a perfect way to end it right there.
Yeah.
Results of the program.
Living proof.
Sounds like a good title for this episode.
There we go.
I mean, thank you so much for coming out, dude, spending time with us, kicking it.
Absolutely.
You're always welcome at any time.
Appreciate y'all having me.
We love you.
We appreciate